Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome back to the American Cinematheque, Richard Benjamin. So this was your second film as a director, and your first movie, My Favorite Year, was pretty great debut, to say the least. So going into your second movie, were you at all, after doing something with Peter O'Toole and the great script you had for My Favorite Year, did you feel any kind of pressure to live up to that? Did you feel like you had to, with your second film, you had to top what you had done the first time out?
Well, just as I think after I don't know if My Favorite Year was out yet, maybe it was, or right before that, Lat Bernheim sent me this script, and I read it, and I thought to myself, this script is wonderful, but I can't just go ahead and do another movie. I just finished a movie, and I should be looking, I only want to do good material, but this is good material. And how this happened so quickly, I thought I'd be looking around and, and take my time and try and find some things, and all of a sudden this came, and I remember sitting at home reading it and finishing the last page, and I've never done this before, or since actually, and I turned it, and I said, I can't believe what I just read here. So I read it again, and I thought, this is wonderful, but I should be kind of thinking about a career or something, but it so appealed to me that I said I have to do this picture and not think that other way about what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. I just knew that I loved this, and it came to me. So.
Well, and the script was written by Steve Kloves, who went on to do, he wrote some of the great American screenplays of the last couple decades, as well as all the Harry Potter movies and everything else. I mean, was this film pretty close to what was on the page? Did you?
Yes, there were little adjustments along after Sean came on and Elizabeth. There were some kind of things that had to do with Elizabeth's, Sean believing who Elizabeth was or wasn't. There was something about that Sean felt was a little too pat, and so Steve did some more, a little bit of work, but not very much, not very much. Everything else was just as he wrote it, so there was very little to change in the screenplay.
Well, the cast is incredible. I mean, where did you come across these guys? Had Valley Girl and Ridgemont High, had those movies come out yet when this?
Valley Girl did, but it was so amazing to me because in this age range at that time, Wally Nacita was a casting director, and she was a great one, and I saw people now that are huge stars, just one after the other kept coming in there, but Sean, there was something about Sean that just felt to me that he was the real thing, and there was such deepness in there, and there was just something about him, as certainly we all know. And then I went to see him in a play in New York called The Slab Boys, which was a Scottish play about guys working in some kind of marble place where they made marble or something. And he was terrific in it. So I had no other thought in my mind but Sean. And then I had seen Valley Girl, and Nikki came in, and they all came in to read, I mean, I read one person after another of these terrific people, but at the minute I saw Nikki, I stopped. And then Elizabeth, who I had always just absolutely loved, I just cast her, we sent it to her, and I think she was in New York or somewhere, but there was no question in my mind. Because there's something about Elizabeth that is that kind of 40s girl on the Coke ads or something. You know, she's got that wonderful American 40s kind of face even, and besides being a wonderful actress. So it all fell into place very easily, actually. But that's what happens with a really good screenplay.
Well, it's interesting that you said about Elizabeth McGovern having a 40s face, because one of the things that struck me watching this tonight, and My Favorite Year a couple weeks ago when we were at the Egyptian, is that your period pieces are cast really well for the era. The people in them look like they belong in the era. They don't look like contemporary people dressing, just playing dress up or whatever. And I was wondering, do you look for certain kinds of faces when you're doing period pieces, or is that just hair and makeup and costumes?
No, it isn't. I'm convinced that people look different at different times. I don't know if it's evolution or what it is, but I think I know there are different haircuts in the 30s and in the 40s and all that, and we've seen a lot of movies where contemporary people play that, but I'm convinced that there is an actual look or physical and facial and kind of soul kind of feelings that are set in their time. And it's just not a matter of clothes and makeup. I think there's something in there. And Elizabeth has this wonderful... listen, I cast for who the people are. I know they're wonderful actors, but it's what's inside. Because I think the thing reads it. It's too close, and it's too big. And it reads your thoughts, and it reads who you are. I don't think you can hide. And I don't think you can be something else and act it differently on the screen. I think what comes through is what's inside of you, and that's the way I've always tried to cast.
And on a movie like this, do you like to do a lot of rehearsal, or do you think that kills some of the spontaneity? Because I know on the DVD commentary track for Last of Shelia, which we're going to watch next, you said something interesting, which is that you said when the camera's rolling, something happens that never happens any other time.
That's right, and also I regretted any time I didn't shoot a rehearsal, because that first time they hear it in their heads for the first time, and they've got no chance to fix, they've got no chance to make it better, to clean it up or anything. So I do shoot rehearsals because of that. But what you're saying is true. The minute that camera rolls, it's opening night. We could be in the middle of the night here somewhere with a train or something, and one of those takes is opening night. We can be in the morning shooting, first thing in the morning, and one of those takes is opening night. So the actors all know that. So when that camera's rolling, that other thing kicks in that doesn't happen any other time. I don't like to rehearse too much. Some things you've got to lay out and do, but I do it more to set up shots, and I do it more for staging and stuff like that.
Well, speaking of staging, another thing that struck me watching this and My Favorite Year so close together is that I really like how your style is very restrained in terms of the editing. You tend to let important scenes play out without cutting a lot, except for when it's important. And I'm wondering, in a scene, say, after the abortion, when Nicolas Cage and Sean Penn are in the bowling alley talking, and you wait a while before you go in for the close-ups, is that planned ahead of time, or do you just shoot the coverage and decide in the editing room?
No, it is planned. I think things should work in the master. I think and if I can do something in one setup, I like to do it because the actors, especially if they're actors like this, the longer the scene, the more, it's like a high wire act. The longer it goes on, the more power that they develop, and the more, what's the word? It's like, this thing is going on for 1 page and 2 pages. Whoa, this, we can't screw up now. There's 4 pages here and stuff. So there's an excitement there that doesn't happen in little takes and stuff. So I like to do long things. why I like people who've worked on the stage. And all of them, well, I don't remember if Nikki had by that point, but certainly Sean and Elizabeth had. And so I like those long takes and stuff, and I like to make sure it all works in this master shot, because that's what tells you what to cover and what you might need. Sometimes you get into things where, you know, they're telling you you've got a half hour and you've got 4 more shots here and we'll never come back to this location again, and you've got to drop shots, you know, you can't, you're out of here. You know, people were looking at their watches and, you know, all of that. And so you say, I'll figure this out in 1 shot. I'll make this work in 1 shot. So all of that stuff. But that's the fun of it, and that's the excitement of making movies, that you can kind of try and pull those things off and stuff.
Well, and you had a great collaborator on this movie. Your director of photography was John Bailey, who, at the time you made this movie, he was at the top of his game. I mean, he was coming off of Ordinary People and American Gigolo and stuff like that. So, how did you decide on him, and what was that relationship like?
It worked. Jerry Hirschfeld did my favorite year, and you know, and Jerry was great, and the production designer, Chuck Gross, they were all great. But because I was just so new at this, and I wanted to work with other people. I wanted to, you know, everybody and everybody else's job knows more than I do. And you rely on that. So I wanted to learn as much as I could. And having worked with these other great people in my favorite year, I said, well, let's see if we can, if I can expand. You know what happens is, when your first movie, you kind of don't know all of the, how, the movies are as big as your imagination. There's no limit, because the crews and designers, they can do anything. So as you keep going, the horizon keeps moving away from you. You think you've mastered something. You haven't mastered anything. But because you've learned more, you now know you can do more. But it keeps moving away. You never catch up to it. So you keep working with these people, you know, who can help you and fulfill the kind of things that you have in your head, because I kind of see this movie in my head. And when we did this movie, I said, this train is really important in this, and it's like a character, and it was really important to me. And when we went up there, there was no train. There was no nothing. And then we said, they told us, well, there's a steam engine here that has been torn down, and they're rebuilding. There's some kind of tourist thing that goes up to Willits, where this, I think Georgia Pacific is up there or something, and they were making some kind, they were getting this steam engine ready for some kind of tourist thing, but it was an old, real steam engine. And they said, would you like to see it? And I said, oh boy, yeah. So we walk into this giant shed, and I said, where is it? He said, there it is. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, it's there, that's part of the engine, and that's part of the wheels are over there. I said, oh. I said, well, we'll be back. You know, we're coming back here in 2.5 months to shoot this movie. And can you build this thing and get it ready? They said, yeah, we'll get it ready. And I thought, that's never going to happen. I mean, it looked like, you know, like the Lionel's trains on the ground here, right? And I kept, because I kept checking in and stuff, he said, yeah, well, they got this part of it up now. They're testing the boiler. I thought, forget it, you know. And when I got back up there ready to shoot, they had that thing up and running. One of the most fascinating things in the making of movies, this picture started off at 20th Century Fox. And that's where I was casting. I had an office there and everything. We're getting ready to do this movie, and some of the executives started to say the budget was too high, and I thought, well, it's not very high at all, and if you keep pulling, I don't think we can do this at this. And they said, well, and then I had a conversation with somebody, an executive, who wanted to talk to me about the comedy in it, and I said, there is no conversation about comedy. I can't talk to you about comedy. I can't sit here and tell you, this part's going to be funny and that part's going to be funny. I said, we can't talk about that. So I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I said, if you're going to pull money out of this and stuff, first I already gave back some money for my salary to keep this thing going. And I said, if I could get this picture, and this was dangerous, if I could get this picture set up somewhere else, would you let it go? And they said, yeah, if you know. So I called up Stanley Jaffe, who had produced Goodbye Columbus, the first movie I acted in, and Sherry Lansing, who were producing movies. And I called up Stanley and I said, can I send you this script? I told them the situation. They had a deal with Paramount, and he said, who do you have in this movie? And I said, Sean Penn and Nicky Cage and Elizabeth McGovern. He said, and they don't want to make this movie? So I said, well, there's some problems here. He said, let me see the script. So I sent him the script and Sherry Lansing the script, and they just loved it. And they wanted to do it. So, but, there's a big distance between this thing happening and me taking this picture out of this place. And meanwhile, including people who were working on the train, on the engine, and everything else up in Mendocino were 20th Century Fox crew. All over the place, making everything 1942 and everything. So, and they're good people and nice people, and they're working their tails off up there, and I get into a little plane because I'm going up there having to complete some more production stuff. But in my head I'm saying, I don't know if this is a 20th Century Fox picture or what this is. So I get in the plane, and I get there and land in this little runway at Mendocino, and we don't have any cell phones, there are no cell phones or anything, and there's a phone booth on at the little airport, the little runway, and I'm flying there. It's a Fox movie. The plane lands and starts to leave, turn around and leave, and I get a phone call in that booth. I pick it up, and it's Stanley, and he says, well, I think this is going to work. There's a couple of things about the budget and stuff, but I think it's going to work. I said, well, the plane's going, and is this a Fox movie or a Paramount movie? And he said, I said, tell them to get the plane. Stop the plane. So they went out and do this, because there's no air tower or anything. There's just people doing that. And they stopped the plane, and he says, well, okay, it's a Paramount movie. So when I flew up there, it was a Fox movie. And here are all these fabulous, swell crew. Hi, Richard. Hi, Nick. How are you doing? Boy, we sure love working on this and everything. We're all behind you in this. And I said, you're not going to be working on it. You've done a wonderful job, but you're fired. I'm not really fired, but it's not my fault. You guys work for Fox, It's a Paramount movie. So, I mean, it's movies and everything. But that's how it got over there. And was a Paramount movie. But another kind of good thing happened when you said about rehearsal, and people, because by this time John Bailey and I and the designers and everybody, we were now looking at locations locations, and the cast had arrived. And way in the distance, we see two people walking, and they're holding hands. And I said, boy, if that's Elizabeth and Sean, it's good for the movie. And it was. They said, oh, look at that. They're a little more than friends. Excellent. You know? Now, this has got to last for the whole film. And it sure did. But they were just great people to work with. So.
Well, I want to open it up to the audience if anybody has any questions out there. Yeah.
What kind of experience did you have working with all these great actors right at the beginning of their careers? Did you have any problems? And did your own background as an actor, how did that figure into working with all these not beginning, but these new actors?
Did you guys hear that in the back?
Okay. Working with these actors and what, my background for, well, being an actor helped tremendously because I know listen, everybody, what it is they're afraid. Everybody is afraid all the time. And it's fear that runs around a movie set, just like another character and stuff. And your job, my job, is to make this a safe place. I did a play once with Milos Forman, and who's, of course, great. And he said, we all have to be stupid here. We have to be able to be stupid here. And he meant that we have to be able to make mistakes, we have to try things. If we don't try anything, it's just going to be bland, it's just going to be small. So I try and provide a net for them, so they'll go out and be expansive, and hope they will trust me in that I won't let them look foolish or anything, but they do need to be bold and not get so tiny. I see a lot of movies where people are kind of talking like that, and it's like they're very real because they talk very low. It's like people don't talk that way in real life. Nobody talks like that. So the idea of them having a safe place and all of that is part of the job of them feeling that they can go out there, and I won't let them, fall on their face in any way. So that's happened most of the time. The only problem I had on this movie was that Sean and Nikki wanted to do all their own stunts. And Stanley said to me, there's insurance here. You can't let them do any of these things. And in the skating scene, he knew that Sean's character was supposed to be whipped out of this thing and thrown out the door. And he said, now, make sure, Sean wants to do that. Don't let him do that. We've got a stunt person here. So I said, when we got there, because I knew Stanley was coming a little later, I said to Sean, they don't want you. He said, no, I can do this. I can do this. So early on, we did that whipping around thing, and he just flew out the door. And then Stanley came a little later, and he said, so how'd the stunt guy do? And I said, well, it wasn't exactly the stunt guy. And he said, you didn't let Sean do that, did you? I said, yeah, but it was great. We did it in one take. He said, if he broke his ankle or something, the movie we'd be dead. We'd be finished and stuff like that, which is kind of true. But at the same time, if you cut away in the middle of something that an actor is doing, everybody knows it. They know that this thing is not really real. And especially someone like Sean, who, we did put up an argument about wanting to do that. But that one, I did not, I was on his side on that one. On the train was a whole other ballgame there. Because he and Nikki wanted to jump on that train, the night train, which, by the way, was day for night. And that was another fabulous jump, John Bailey, because that was you could only do a day for night scene in bright sunlight, because to make that work and the filters that they use and everything, it has to be as if there's moonlight. So there has to be real sun. You can't do that on a gray day or anything like that. So that whole train sequence was during the day. And the two of them, you know, were on those tracks as that train was coming at them. And of course, it's Sean and Nikki, so, you know, they're looking at each other and think, they're not going to be the first one to jump out of the way of that train. The other one's going to be the first one to jump out of the way. And I said, oh, no, I should not have let them do this. No. And I'm watching that train coming, and my life is starting to flash before me. And they jump out of the way. Okay, so then they want to run and jump on the train. And then I've got these stunt guys, and they're all there, and they're saying, you can't let them do this, because what nobody really knows is that when the train is moving, there's air that's moving over the train, which is moving and sucking down underneath the train. The way the air is moving, it's coming around those cars and stuff, and actually like a funnel going under the wheels of the train. So if they slip or something, they're just going to go underneath. They're not going to go, you know. So that was our only argument. I said, you can't do this, and I'm not going to let you do this. And he was mad, especially Sean, because he said, I know what he means. He said, the guy who's going to jump on the train, I know he's a good stuntman, but that character, that's my body, that's my intention. You know, he's very serious about all of this kind of stuff. And they'll know that. I said, no, I'll do it in a way they won't know. And he said, but it's not me. And that's why it meant something. He didn't want to be some kind of macho thing. It was his body. He was the person that was supposed to be. And I said, no. And so we got to start, we shot that thing, and then the train is moving and all of that. I'm up on top for that shot that's looking down. And I see the guy running alongside, and these are all the things, and this is how these things happen. The guy on the left side who's doing Nikki is getting along fine, and the guy on the right side is doing, whichever side it was, I think was doing Sean. In between the ties, they had not packed down the ground hard. So he lost his footing and grabbed on, but he couldn't hold on, and he was gone. I mean, I couldn't see where he went, but I thought, my second movie, I said, oh no, you know, I mean, I was really scared. And I heard crackling over the walkie-talkies and all of this thing. And the train, by the way, you don't stop the train, I mean, and I said to the guy in the train, I said, how fast are we going? He said, no, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 miles. I said, what do you mean you don't know? And he said, well, there's no speedometer on here. You don't know how fast you're going. I said, well, he says, it's a steam engine. He said, if I push the thing here, it goes. And if I pull back, it slows down. He said, that's it. And so I said, well, when we started off, before the guy ran on the thing, it felt slow to me. And I said to them over the walkie, you know, can you go faster? What are you at now? He said, I don't know. So I said, well, just go faster. He did. And the guys were running, and they jumped, and the guy was gone. And I thought, uh-oh, you know, this is horrible. And anyway, my whole, you know, my brain just stopped at that point until, you know, it's okay, it's fine. You know? My life came back, you know. But he felt himself, I talked to him later, we all did, and he knew what was happening, and he used his feet to push himself away from the side of the train. And when we got back there, Sean had already heard about it, so everything changed then, and he realized that, you know, that it was dangerous.
Other questions? Yes.
Did Sean Penn play the piano? Because when you saw the hands going and then him?
Yeah. In the first part, yes, and some of the other scene. He learned that. Was it the Revolutionary Etude, Paula? Is that what it was?
C-sharp waltz by Chopin.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. He learned the first bits of that. Again, that's Sean. he said, I'm going to learn this, you know, I don't want to do that thing, you know, you show my face, then you show somebody else's hands and stuff like that. So I was able to have a shot where you saw him playing and some of the other two. Yeah.
Yes.
You worked with Walter Matthau in Sunshine Boys and House Call.
Oh, yeah.
And your scenes together were just special, terrific.
Oh, thank you.
What was it like working with Matthau?
Walter's the best. Walter is just a wonderful, he was a wonderful, wonderful man, besides being a great actor. But the real thing, I mean, Walter was the absolute real thing. On House Calls, we're doctors. So we operate on somebody at the beginning of the movie. So I said, we have to go see an operation. He said, what for? So he said, well, we're doctors. We have to know how to, he said, I'm Walter Matthau. He said, do you think that between now and the time we do this movie, people think I became a doctor? He said, you go look at an operation. I'm not looking at any operation.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the time when you worked on The Last of Shelia with James Coburn and Delphine, maybe if you remember?
Oh yeah, we're going to see a little bit. Well, Coburn, you know, was the greatest, and they all were. It was one of the best acting experiences, and you'll see in, I think you'll see in this scene, you know, getting to know James Mason and Coburn, and Ian McShane now, who's doing so much now, and Joan Hackett, who was just great, and Diane and Raquel and everybody. It was quite a group, and we were all on a boat, as you know, in this movie. One time, James said to me, he said, the women are all on board, can you feel it? Oh, yes, we could feel it. And we have a scene at the end of the movie, and his dressing room was right next to mine, and Paul and I were in mine, and his wife Carissa, and they would read the paper together and everything. Anyway, it was, you know, getting to work with James Mason and Jim Coburn, and they became really good friends and stuff. So anyway, we have this scene towards the end of the movie, and one day he says, we're hanging out in the set of the boat. The boat, by the way, when we got there, we were supposed to shoot on the boat, and Herb Ross, who's the director, said, we have a little problem, and we may have to start on the interiors. Oh, what happened? Well, the boat caught fire and sank. Where's the boat? We said, we don't have any boat. We're looking for a boat in the south of France. Okay, so, but anyway, towards the end, they did find out it was Sam Goldwyn's boat, I think. And towards the end, James says to me, are you doing anything? I said, no. He said, do you want to meet me up in the main part of the lounge thing? I said, yeah. So, you know, maybe we could have a cup of coffee or something. I said, okay. And so we're up there, and I'm thrilled because I'm sitting here with James Mason. And we start talking, and he's talking to me about something, and I think he's talking about something that happened a few days ago, and I'm listening to him, and I'm talking. I said, wait a minute, I thought, this is the scene we're going to be doing. He's rehearsing. But it's like not a rehearsal. It's just conversation. It's just talking. And what I realized and why it was one of the best acting experiences when we did the scene, why he was such a great movie actor. Somebody said, to be a great movie actor, you have to be able to do ordinary conversation. There are big scenes and little scenes and comedy and action, but to be able to have an ordinary conversation with someone in a movie is hard. And he was a master at it. And in that scene that we did, for one of the few times, I was I didn't know what the next lines were. I didn't know what his next line was. I didn't know what mine was. I knew it when it was time for me to speak because it was all real. It was completely real. Sometimes you're in a scene and you're thinking, what's my name? Oh, I know what my next speech is. When his mouth stops moving, I talk. Because you're not, but with him, you're just there. And it was an extraordinary experience. And Coburn, we had time off and stuff in there, and Coburn took delivery on a Dino Ferrari. He loved these cars, and he was a terrific driver. And so he said, we were off one day, and he said, let's go to Italy. So I said, okay, because we were in the south of France, which was not a bad location. And it usually is about, from where we were, about, I don't know, almost 2 hours away, So he takes delivery in this car, this beautiful little Ferrari. So we're on the auto route, and we're going pretty fast. And he said, how fast do you think we're going? I said, oh, I don't know. We're probably about 80 now, right? And he said, oh, we're a little faster. I said, really? He was like, 80, what are we, 85? He said, because I looked down, and I thought the thing was what do you call it?
RPMs.
Huh?
RPMs?
No, in the European...
Kilometers.
Kilometers. I thought the speedometer was in kilometers. And I'm seeing on there 120. And I'm thinking, well, what does 120 translate into? Like half or something. Or I said, it's kilometers, right? He said, no. He said, I took delivery on this car because they're shipping it back. That's miles per hour. I said, we're going 120 miles an hour? He said, yeah, but doesn't she feel great? And I said, yeah, because I realized the other cars now look like they're stopped. And we get to the border in about 55 minutes. And we get across the French part. There are the Italian, Carabinieri, these Italian, at the Italian border. And I said, oh no, I didn't realize we were actually going in Italy. I didn't bring my passport. So he's got his passport. So we get up there, and they're saying, passport, And I said, I don't know. And they look at him, and they say, Senor Flint. It's our man Flint. Nobody showed any passport to anybody. So being with him was a good deal. Oh, we had a great time.
Yes.
On the cast of Sheila, with all the different acting styles and approaches, were there any famous clashing stories or synchronicity stories?
Yes, but I can't say what they were. No, well, some, not so much. Not so much. We had this bomb threat, just to divert away from that question. We did have a bomb. We had bodyguards after a while, and there was some kind of thing, the Black September and stuff. There was yeah. And so there was and we had bodyguards. I realized people were following us, but they were, they had gotten us bodyguards. That was a little odd. But we were there so long, and Paula went away to make a movie and come back. We were in the south of France for 4 months, which wasn't a bad deal. And we went through every 3- and 4-star, 2-star restaurant in the south of France. And both Paul and I lost all this weight, but we had the highest cholesterol count. But it was great. I mean, it was a wonderful, great, Oh, and they were making another movie there at the Victorine Studios in Nice, where we shot some of the stuff. And we go, and it was Truffaut. And we'd see them with, they had a camera on their shoulder, a Panaflex or something, and we see Jacqueline Bisset doing doing something. They'd be at the gate of the studio, and it would look like, you know, it looks like they're making home movies or something. They look like a professional movie is being made. Well, they were making day for night. So it was a wonderful, you know, pretty exciting time to make movies there.
Yes.
Was the whole film shot in the south of France? Were any interiors done in America?
You know, I'm trying to think. First I would say the whole film was made there. I'm just trying to think of one of these openings at the beginning where.
Like when you're in your house.
Yeah,
I
can't remember where that was. I don't think we shot anything here, but that does look like Southern California. But so does the south of France. So I think everything. I know almost everything was shot there. Yeah.
Yes.
In the first film, there was a scene in like the middle of the film where there's like a highway or a bridge, and you see like the two silhouettes. Very impressionable scene, and I was like noticing, I think, the clouds. Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
I know exactly the scene because I fought to get that trestle shot.
The trestle?
That shot on that trestle.
Okay, so my question is about that whole shot. Can you talk a little bit specifically about, like, in terms of the sky, was that just luck that was there, or did you try to create a, was it in the screenplay, or what? I mean,
no, it wasn't in the screenplay. When I saw all the locations and I saw that trestle, I said somehow this has got to be in the movie and we have to do it. After that train scene and all of that. So I insisted that we do that. It was a fight in terms of time to get that shot, but the sky was the way it was.
It just happened to be like that.
It just happened. But what you do there, because you can't be sure, is bracketed. In other words, as the sun was going down, I would start shooting, get the guys back and do it again as it was getting darker and darker until almost I couldn't see them anymore. So that you would pick the best exposure, the best time for that shot. You can't be sure of it. I mean, today and digitally you do this and do all that stuff. But then, and I also think, in my own head this is better because that's real and it's really there. But you do bracket it in terms of light and time, because you can't be entirely sure of when it's going to be a silhouette and when not.
Very nice scene.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Goodbye Columbus is a fabulous film. And I want to ask you, what was it like working with that wonderful black kid at the New York Public Library? Can you talk about that?
Well, that's a lovely question, because we had a kid in that part, and Larry thought he was too actory and decided not to use him. And Larry got that kid off the street. And we were up there, it was the NYU library uptown in New York, and Larry, and it was not an easy thing to do, because the kid and his parents said, well, what's this, what do you want, and to approach somebody who's not an actor kid, and just, and Larry talked to him for a while and just liked him, and he was, of course, real, and talked to his parents and say, this is what the scene is, you can read it, we're not doing anything here except that's. So that, I particularly liked that scene too, but it was Larry who thought the other kid was too actory. But actually just on the street, and I think he was with his parents when Larry spotted him.
Yes.
Yeah, in Last of Shelia, can you just tell us what the origin of the puppet, the hand puppeting was? Were they in the script, or is that something that you guys?
I don't remember exactly. I think Herb did that. I don't remember that either in the script, but I think Herb Ross did that. But in that, it's Tony Perkins and Stephen Sondheimer wrote that, and they were well-known game players in New York. They would have treasure hunts all over the city. And there was one, we weren't in it, but there was one where they actually was something that would say something like, there's a lady with a light, something. It meant she was supposed to go to the Statue of Liberty. And there was the next clue. So people were running all over New York City playing this game that they made up. He had another game, much smaller game, where the old Polaroid cameras, you were to go into a bathroom alone and take a picture of a body part with a Polaroid, and then people had to identify the body part. And it would be, oh my God, I know what that is. Say, no, it's my elbow. What do you think of that? So they played all these games, and they decided to write a screenplay that you could actually play the game. That you couldn't. They thought all those other movies where somebody gathers somebody at the end and says, no, I know who did it because so-and-so couldn't have been in the parlor at that time because he was actually out watering the lawn. The lawn was wet, therefore we know, all of that. So they decided to do one where you actually could play the game, and you can. You can follow this thing because there's things that this is so-and-so's point of view, this is somebody else's point of view, and the answer to the game is in the title. It's actually in the title because the Last of Shelia is the letter A. And in the beginning where you see Coburn moving everybody around under the bow of the boat where the name of the boat is, he's actually putting those people under the letters of those cards that he hands out. So it's immediately in the title. And then it is also in all these other clues and stuff. And Herb Ross and the script supervisor would get into these enormous fights because it would be, she can't be in the thing in that confessional. It's only, he said, no, he's in the confessional. No, he's already dead. That's not he's not telling that story at that time. The other guy is telling the story so that he's alive. I mean, we'd be screaming and yelling at each other. But you can actually play it.
Well, let's watch it. I'm getting the signal this time to watch it. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Thanks so much.